Hello everyone, welcome to Whose Matrix Is It Anyway, where the stake isn't matter and everything's got a green tint. Today we're talking about reflection, enumeration, and deletion. What the heck are those? Let's find out. So as we saw in the last video, we can use the object.create method to create a new object which links up to another object. And when we have this parent-child relationship, the parent object is called the child object's prototype. So in this example that we have here, my person would be called Chris's prototype. So if you want to know whether an object has a property, we can look it up using either dot or bracket notation, something like Chris dot some property. So if I wanted to view the result of looking up Chris dot hands, let's say. Now it doesn't have this property, so it'll be undefined, but what happens when I want to look up a property that is up the prototype chain? So for example, if I want to look at Chris.arms, it's going to look on Chris, it's not going to see arms there, it's going to look up the prototype chain to its parent, my person, and it's going to see that my person has the property arm. So when I say Chris.arms, and I log this out, it is going to show 2 in the terminal. So using dot or bracket notation to look up a property doesn't necessarily guarantee that that property is on the object itself. It might be on that object's prototype. So how can we check that the property that we're looking for is on the object itself? One way to sort of get around this issue is to use the hasOwnProperty method. So I can use the hasOwnProperty method to check this. So I could do something like Chris has own property and pass in the string arms. And I'm gonna log this out. Once again, I'm using the VS Code extension called Code Runner, and I see false. All right, next up, you can use a for-in loop to loop over all of the properties of an object. For example, I want to grab each key in my Chris object, and let's see what each key is. Now the issue with this is that when I actually log this out, the for-in loop will not only loop over the keys of the Chris object itself, but it'll also loop over any properties that I created on that object's prototype. So you can see in the console here, I have now logged arms and legs. So prototype properties will be included in the for-in loop on an object. So again, how can we get around this? Well, we can combine what we just learned. We can use the hasOwnProperty method inside of the for-in loop. So for example, if I wanted to check each one of these keys against whether Chris has that key, I could do something like console log, check which key we are looking at, and check whether my object Chris has own property that key. And I see arms, no, it does not have that property. Legs, no, it does not have that property, because both of those properties exist up the prototypal chain. So in some sense, we can kind of use hasOwnProperty here to filter out the properties that we don't necessarily care about. One thing to bear in mind in this process is that the order of keys in an object is not necessarily guaranteed. So if you need a solution that ensures the keys appear in a certain order, you might want to reach for a different data structure, maybe something like a map. You can watch my other video on maps to get a feel for what that might look like. You could also use an array, and if you're using some sort of loop that loops over the elements of an array, you don't need to worry about properties that might exist up the prototype chain, but there might be performance drawbacks to using an array over an object in some scenarios. If you're interested in learning more about that, I would suggest studying big O notation and time complexity in JavaScript. All right, last but not least, if we want to delete a property from an object, imagine that we had a property on Chris called hands, and that is 2. So now if I console log Chris, I will see hands on that object. What if I want to actually delete that property? Well, what I can do is I can use the delete keyword, and then if I log it out again, I will see the second time that that property has been removed completely. However, if I try to delete a property that exists up the prototypal chain, and then I try to view the result of what happened when I did that, does Chris still have the property arms if I'm looking up the prototypal chain. Yes, it still does. So I was not able to delete a property that existed up the chain. So in order to delete that property arms, I would either need to remove the link between Chris and my person, or delete arms directly from my person. So anytime we have a property that exists up the prototypal chain that cannot be deleted, this is called a non-configurable property. Any properties that exist on objects by default, such as any methods that are native to big O object, like hasOwnProperty and isPrototypeOf, those are considered methods that are non-configurable properties. They exist by default, they're there natively, and they cannot be deleted. All right, that's all I got for today. If you found this helpful, feel free to help me out by giving me a like and a subscribe down below, and stay tuned as we continue through object-oriented programming in JavaScript in my next videos. Thanks for watching, have a great day, I will see you all later.